let's go a little bit back in time and to your beginning as a musician. I understood that you started playing piano when you were 3 years old. How did this
Well,
piano came to
of
you
course, this
in the
is
first
a
place?
time that I do not remember anymore, but what I'm told is that I was
Mm,
interested in the notation of music and I started to compose. As a result of that, my mother saw that I needed
mm,
to learn more about music and that I wanted to pursue this in a more serious way. So she got me a piano and arranged lessons. And of course, it was always my hobby ever since. And eventually, it became my profession.
mm. I understand that your parents were not actually
That I
musical,
don't
but
know. I
how
think
did this
music
music came
does
into you?
exist as a universal human condition, and therefore I believe that even if one is not exposed to music when one is very young, one has always a musical sense. At least there are certain people who, for whom this is true. And there are, of course, people who are naturally and biologically unmusical. But I don't believe that this has to do with upbringing. It may be that depending on how one is
Mm,
exposed to music, one may see different things in it, and one may have different opinions about it.
mm, mm. You have also been studying mathematics uh, approximately the same time that you have studied music. Um, do you see similarities between
Well,
mathematics and
I think
music?
that you can approach this question in many different ways. Mathematics is a kind of field for which you can say that
Mm,
everything belongs to it. Everything is mathematical because by the definition of what mathematicians want to do, they want to it's a thing that it's a way of thinking that embraces everything. And one can also answer this question in a more practical way. And what is it like to think about mathematics, and what is it like to think about music? And I think it's very similar in the sense that one has to use creativity based on knowledge. And this may not be true of every profession. That creativity is the end result. That it, it it is what defines whether whether you have done something useful or not.
mm, mm. Um, as you mentioned, composing has been a very important part of your musical life. What inspires you as a
I'm
composer?
inspired by essentially my thoughts, and that can be coming from what I see, from what I have written already, or even from things that I play. I think music can be seen on many different levels. One is an abstract level where essentially music gives birth to more music, and another one is where you look at a wider view and see what the suggestions that are present in the music have to do with the world outside of music. There's program music, there's also music that is an abstraction of the world. And I think it is not really the case by any composer that a composer restricts himself to being inspired by only one thing. I think it is very common, of course, to be inspired by images,
Mm,
to be inspired by nature, by paintings, and also by things in language.
mm, mm. Um, you were born in Los Angeles. You have lived in Paris, in London. in two continents. Do you think this affects to your music when you have had this kind of
I'm
international
certainly very
background?
happy to be in a position to travel much more than a lot of other people because I enjoy traveling very much. Whether this influences the way I think about music, I don't know because I cannot think how it would be otherwise. And I cannot recall a version of myself where I do not travel and see how that version plays. It probably does make a certain kind of personality. You know, the person who travels has a certain way of accepting what he sees and not to try to make judgments because in the end I suppose that it also makes a difference in interpretation whether one is judging from the beginning or one is accepting. And I'm more the kind of interpreter who tries to enhance rather than to to enhance what is already there and to see what I can make of it rather than to see how to use a certain text to to propagate a message that I have already thought of myself.
Mm, mm. You're a composer, but you're also a performer. What do you think to you is the best part? Is it the actual performing
Mm,
or
I
preparing?
think both are. Of course, they are exciting in very different ways. And I'm not exactly the kind of musician who prepares in order to perform. In fact, most of the time when I'm playing for myself, it has nothing to do with what I'm performing. It's almost like two separate musical lives. I actually prefer when I play with not in front of an audience to play chamber music because like this it's a conversation and one is always having a lot of fun.
Mm, mm. Which one do you prefer? Um, do you like to more to perform by yourself or with
Oh well, that depends on who the other
other
people are.
people? What do you think?
And a good chamber music concert, especially a concert with a singer, has an effect on me that I very rarely can imagine having when I perform by myself. And I was actually playing the Schöne Magelone of Brahms a, a week ago, and I simply cannot imagine being so close to just crying if I were only playing by myself.
Mm, 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 yes. Um, you are now going to perform in Tapiola Sali on 18th. What can we expect from that concert?
Well, on the program is a Mozart concerto and the Hindemith Kammermusik. These are interesting pieces which I'm not sure have so much to do with each other, but well, I'll leave that connection to the dramaturgist on the program. But well, I think it's hard to say now because I haven't had a single rehearsal yet. But I can say already that the Mozart concerto is one of these pieces that really draws one in. And when I play it or when I think about it, when I read it, it's as if no other music needs to exist. For me, when I'm thinking about this piece, I am not making references to anything else. It tells me everything that I need to know about itself. And it's not the case of every piece. I mean, there are certain things where you look at it like you're looking in a museum and you say, well, that's interesting. I want to know more about it. And then there are other things where just instantly, intuitively, you feel like it's already part of you. And personally, this is the case with this Mozart concerto for me. The Hindemith piece is also very interesting. I mean, it has an incredible atmosphere. As a composer, one is always trying to, let's say, think of the room before making the painting. You think of what kind of sound world you want, what kind of mood before you think of the melodies. And this is a very elusive thing. And Hindemith has really managed to make a certain world that really reminds me of, or at least it suggests to me that, and this is what I associate with the the mind world of that era of his compositions, and it's in a way very typical. And I very much enjoy getting the goosebumps from being reminded of this particular way of thinking and of this way of coloring.
Um, Now, after what will happen to your life after you have left Finland? What will happen to you in the near future?
Next week, I'm playing 3 recitals in Germany with 3 very interesting programs. Unfortunately, no Finnish music, but that will
Okay.
come.
And also, you have been doing recordings. Is there going to be new projects in the near future? Near future?
I have to admit that I'm thinking really more about concerts than about recordings, because in a concert, there's a certain kind of instant gratification. When I'm playing on a stage, I know that this is, in a way, an end product, and it's very exciting to see what's coming out. On a recording, I'm playing, and then maybe 1 month later, I get to hear it, and then I forget how I play already. So, um, well, I think they're both very interesting ways of making music. I don't necessarily believe that one is more authentic than the other. In a concert, you have the authenticity because that is a snapshot in time. It is how you feel, and after playing, let's say, the first 5 bars in this particular atmosphere, you want to play the 6th bar in a certain way, and in a concert you do. That's a certain kind of honest way of making music. On a recording, of course, once I get it, I don't even know whether the 6th bar comes from the same take as the 5th bar or whatever, and it's, in a sense, you have less control. But it's also interesting because then you have the distance. You know what you really sound like, whereas in a concert, what you hear is not really what anyone else hears.
Um, you have gained success as a performer and as a composer. What is something that you haven't really done artistically that you would love to do in the sometime in the future?
Well, I have never conducted professionally in front of an audience. And I have, of course, done this with friends and with sort of little groups that I lead just for myself. But I think it would be a very exciting thing to do, to make music publicly in a concert without actually making the sound of the music.
And final question, Kit, is that you are a busy person working on music, but do you ever get away from music? Do you do also some other tasks? Do you have hobbies?
Yes, I do a lot of things that have probably nothing to do with music, even though I do always have this idea of writing compositions about food.
Okay.
Because, well, well, to answer the questions point blank, I have a great interest in playing tennis, in skiing, And also, I love to visit places and go to museums. And well, I'm let's say that I enjoy the fact of living.
And that's a good way to live, I think. Thank you so much, Kit Armstrong, and I wish you all the best for the future and
Thank you.
upcoming concert. I thank you very much, and I will air this as soon as possible. Okay,
Thank
thank
you
you.
very
Have a
much.
nice have a nice evening over there. Okay, okay. Bye bye. Thank
You
you.
too.
Bye.